Party has been following closely and commenting often on the Benjamin Suarez scandal and the governor and his response from his administration over the course of that scandal and what occurred in the months and now years following. We most recently have received some emails that shed additional light on this particular subject. I know Meredith has distributed press packets for all of you, and if you have questions about the specific emails, by all means, let us know. We'll track it down. It appears, it doesn't appear, it is the fact that the Kasich administration has lied to all of us as Ohioans and those who are here trying to hold the administration to account for their actions. When first asked about whether the Kasich administration had assisted Benjamin Suarez, a major Kasich donor, Kasich spokesperson Chris Shrimp said that they told Suarez that, quote, "we can't help you," end quote, in reference to a letter Kasich's chief legal counsel sent Suarez saying it would, quote, "would not be appropriate for the governor of Ohio to attempt to intervene in the investigation," end quote. However, at the time the administration said that, at exactly the same time that the administration said that, and led all of us to believe that that was their response, the administration knew that Michael Grothaus, Kasich's chief legal counsel, and others in the governor's legal counsel office had sent letters to California, both to the county district attorney and to the California attorney general, where they inquired about litigation against Suarez and attempted to get the AG to pressure the district attorney on the case. Grothaus told the California attorney general that his office believed the investigation of Benjamin Suarez was, quote, unjust. When the letter to the California attorney general came to light, the Kasich administration spokesperson the very next day tried to claim that Grothaus did not know of Suarez's campaign donations, even though they were matters of public record at the time. Frankly, that is a lie. To suggest that the chief legal counsel for the governor, importantly, the chief legal counsel for the governor, not for the state of Ohio, but for the governor, did not know the magnitude of Suarez's involvement in the campaign is frankly a lie. Kasich's administration, Kasich spokesman, of course, did not explain why he falsely told all of you that they did nothing to help Suarez. Nonetheless, the Kasich administration's new revised story about Suarez was that Grothaus, again the legal counsel, after saying that it would be inappropriate for the governor's office to intervene on Suarez's behalf in California, essentially went rogue and in his own initiative wrote a letter. We would have to believe that the governor's lawyer would write a letter on his own behalf, not on the governor's behalf, and to make that initiative on his own. However, the emails we are discussing today reveal that Grothaus and the assistant chief counsel were both intimately involved in pushing California for Suarez. In fact, the governor's legal counsel also discussed the sending of the letters with Beth Hansen, Kasich's chief of staff and former campaign manager, the same day the letter went out. Nothing in Hansen's email indicates that she was surprised by this action or unaware beforehand that he was sending it out. Her only expressed concern was whether Grothaus forwarded a copy of the letter to Suarez, a major donor to Kasich and other Republican campaigns. With this long-awaited records request, it has become abundantly clear that the letter Grothaus sent to Suarez was sent as a smokescreen to create plausible deniability that the Kasich administration's most senior staffers on the official side were engaged in an attempt to help out a major campaign donor. The evidence is quite clear. That is why Beth Hansen did not want Grothaus to send his office's California letters to Suarez. That is why time and time again the Kasich administration has told one lie after another about its efforts to help Ben Suarez, and the cover-up continued. Not only did Grothaus keep Beth Hansen updated on his efforts, he also kept other Kasich staffers like Mark Hamlin, Mary Taylor's director of regulatory policy, up to date daily about the information it received about the lawsuit from the Napa County District Attorney. Grodhouse, again, the governor's lawyer, also shared his letter to the California Attorney General with Mike Hartley, who was then Kasich's Director of Public Liaison. Hartley, as all of us know, was also Deputy Campaign Manager in the 2010 cycle. It's absolutely absurd to think that Beth Hansen, Hartley, and Hamlin were kept in the loop for reasons that have nothing to do with Suarez's status as a major donor to the 2010 Kasich campaign. Yet the Kasich administration's most recently revised story about its efforts to help Ben Suarez was that Grodhouse's efforts were, as Rob Nichols put it in June, nothing more than perfunctory, garden variety casework. Let's be clear. The Chief Legal Counsel of the Governor's Office is not involved in garden variety casework. The Chief of Staff of the Governor is not kept up to date regarding garden variety casework. And the average constituent does not have Governor Kasich's personal cell phone number as Ben Suarez had and still has. This was not garden variety casework. It was, however, the very kind of garden variety corruption we have come to expect from this administration and other statewide elected officials when cornered on their own lies and their deception. This is becoming an all too familiar pattern with this administration. Here are a few examples. Multiple lies have been uncovered about their secret communications plan to try to sell its now abandoned plan to allow fracking on public parks. The unanswered departures of key staffers at the Ohio EPA, including Kasich's director or Mary Taylor's director and chief of staff. This weekend's revelation that John Kasich has created a secret corporate board over the already largely secretive Jobs Ohio board. It's time for this administration to stop hiding and stop lying. What it has done and has been doing for Kasich's major campaign donors and start being held accountable for its pay-to-play politics. Welcome any questions.
Chris, do you know whether these emails ended up in the hands of the federal investigators?
Did you shave?
Yes, I'm sorry. Do you know whether the federal investigators knew that this information existed? And whether it was a fact?
I would only assume that the U.S. Attorney would have sought this evidence. And if this evidence was not turned over at the time, then obviously there's a criminal activity. We've requested and most recently have sued to try and gain access to this information. To the members of the press, you've been lied to repeatedly about this particular sad case in this administration's history. Ben Suarez was not a normal, average Ohioan living in a town like Port Clinton seeking some kind of help from the governor. He had the governor's cell phone, the governor's lawyer initiated and then took part in an activity that tried to get district attorneys in another state, an attorney general of the opposite party in another state to try and pressure those district attorneys to cease their investigation into consumer-related criminal actions that Suarez had evidently been engaged in California. Can the administration point to any other perfunctory garden variety casework where the governor's lawyer got involved at this level? And then will they point out any time that they went through a process over the course of a year to try and mislead and lie about what that process was? It's clear what Rob Nichols said at the time was a lie. It's clear what the Chief Legal Counsel of the state of Ohio said at the time of the governor was a lie. It's clear that those involved in this cover-up were at the highest echelon, the highest level of the governor's administration.
Chris, it said in your first email that Grodhouse, in response to apparently a plain dealer story, he says, I wrote that letter to the California AG on my own. Governor never asked me to do it. In fact, I never even discussed it with the governor.
It's a lie.
All right, so that's part of this, what you would say is the smoke screen there?
It's a lie. That's what I would say. Don't paraphrase, it's a lie.
Could it be technically true that he didn't directly speak with the governor about it, but maybe he spoke with Beth Hansen, who then spoke with the governor?
The head of Board of Pharmacy was fired a couple of days ago. I was just reported because he had the audacity to meet with members of the legislature about pending legislation. The governor's lawyer goes rogue, goes off campus, writes a letter for a major campaign contributor, and no one really knows why, other than he went rogue. On its face, it's unbelievable. But emails point out at the very same time individuals like Beth Hansen, like Mike Hartley, like the Lieutenant Governor's Chief of Regulatory Policy, were all intimately aware and involved in the Suarez case. Those are the facts. Facts are damnable things for the Kasich administration at this point. It points out that members of his administration purposely misled you, perhaps, and my assertion is that they lied to you as well.
Do you believe that these emails are evidence of a quid pro quo?
There's no question. As all of us know, it's not a dirty little secret. It may be dirty, but it's no secret. Campaign contributors at the level of Ben Suarez and his giving fuel campaigns. In this case, fuel the Kasich campaigns. It's been reported repeatedly the millions of dollars he has raised. Those millions of dollars come in the form of $100,000, $200,000, $300,000 contributions to the RGA, to the campaigns, through bundling, and through other associated ways. To suggest that John Kasich and his legal counsel and his campaign manager and deputy campaign manager didn't know who Ben Suarez was, you don't believe that. You don't believe that any more than you knew Tom Noe was involved with Bob Taft and George Voinovich. You just don't believe it. And when we ask, no, that can't be true, Beth, you know who Ben Suarez was. No, Josh Mandel practically was fraternity brothers with Ben Suarez for a period of time. I'm speaking rhetorically, a little hyperbolic. But I will say this, they were intimately aware of each other. Because Ben Suarez was one of the top contributors to the Kasich campaign, a campaign that Beth Hansen ran. A campaign that Beth Hansen ran. Beth Hansen politically could be called a lot of things, but she's an astute political operative who is very well qualified at the job she currently has now and the job she had in 2010. You've never heard me criticize her otherwise. But she knew who Ben Suarez was, and she knew the governor's lawyer did not go rogue, that the governor's lawyer wrote those letters and pressured the Democratic Attorney General of the state of Ohio, of the state of California, in an attempt to show Ben Suarez that they were going to bat for him and please keep the money coming.
Why do you think that the feds did not follow through with charges against?
I'm sorry?
Why do you think the feds then didn't follow through?
I don't know that they had these emails. I said to you, if they did, then it would be criminal in nature, but I don't know that they did. Perhaps you would call them.
Are you going to call them?
Call them and do what?
Provide this information.
Sure, we'll provide it, but I'm not holding out hopes that the Attorney General or the U.S. Attorney for the Northern District is going to seek criminal charges against members of the administration. I don't know if they were interviewed. Lying to a public official, lying to a U.S. Attorney, lying to the FBI is against the law. It's a felony. But I'm not sure that they ever interviewed him about these matters. You know how hard it was for us to come up with these emails. You know in your own particular instances of reporting how difficult it is to come by information.
Well, Chris, I spoke with Senator Sherrod Brown this morning, just a little while ago.
About this?
And I asked him about the fact that we're not going to have any debates in Ohio this year. And the senator said it really was a tremendous disservice to the public. And he told me that, in the past, when he's run for office here in Ohio, he was favored by important margins over his challenger, but he nonetheless stood with that challenger for debates. So now we know that the Republicans, with almost all of them, are going to not stand face-to-face with your candidates and are sort of stiff-arming the voters of Ohio. With information like this coming along, you're suggesting to those of us in the room here that we write about it and research and talk about it. Without debates, who's going to be able to talk to the governor and ask him point blank to answer these charges?
No.
How's that going to come about?
It's a sad reality that more people working at the Cleveland Plain Dealer are covering the Cleveland Cavaliers and LeBron James than covering the State House. It's the world we live in, and it is the world that we will continue to live in. And if those who, like myself and others, don't stand forward and press the governor on these matters, then he will be able to rob a bank, rhetorically speaking, and get away with it. You've all heard me say this repeatedly. In this town, it seems you could rob a 7-Eleven. If you're Republican, you're going to get away with it. But if you trip over a sidewalk and you're a Democrat, we're going to get ceaselessly informed about your inartful way of walking down a sidewalk. The fact of the matter is the governor's legal counsel, not the administration's, but the governor's legal counsel knew that Ben Suarez was a top campaign donor, that Beth Hansen, the campaign manager and then chief of staff for Governor Kasich, knew of Ben Suarez's largesse and purposely misled you. I can understand they want to mislead me. They don't care about me. They don't care about the Democratic Party. Frankly, they don't care about regular everyday Ohioans. If they did, they'd debate. Ted Strickland was up by double digits on Ken Blackwell. You imagine what the Dispatch would have had to say about Ted Strickland if he said I was going to debate Ken Blackwell? Goodness gracious. Imagine what Brent Larkin, columnist of Cleveland Plain Dealer, would have said about Ted Strickland. Kinds of things that he already said, they'd probably magnify. John Kasich doesn't want to campaign or doesn't want to debate the issues that matter most because he knows he's wrong on those issues. There's one poll in the last 4 years that shows him above 50% that was conducted by the publisher who double maxed to the very campaign of John Kasich. Where the editor of that newspaper not only attempted to host a fundraiser for the Republican Party, but did it in the past. They don't want to stand up shoulder to shoulder and answer questions about, hey, John, you said 4 years ago you're going to throw yourself on the hood of a car. Pretty critical of Ted Strickland when he didn't do it, throwing his body on the hood of a car when NCR announced they were going to leave Dayton. What did you do on Armet? Any fingerprints on that hood of that car? You ask those kinds of questions that, it becomes a little more difficult. Maybe a follow-up once in a while. It becomes a little more difficult. It makes the trip to Dubuque and Des Moines. It makes the trip to Oskaloosa. It makes the trip to Points West a little more difficult for the governor of the state of Ohio as he plans his presidential campaign in 2016. Goodness gracious.
In the April 25th chain between Hansen and Grotehouse, if I heard you right, your inference at least was...
Say that again.
That in the April 25th email exchange between Grotehouse and Hansen, like 3 or 4 pages in.
Yeah.
In 2011.
Right. If I heard you right, your inference was that Hansen did not want Suarez to have copies. This exchange, where Grotehouse says, Beth, I'm willing to send copies. Beth says, has he requested them? Grotehouse says, no, but I'm willing to send them to show that we are working on his concerns. Now, at least from Grotehouse's standpoint, it seems like he wanted Suarez to know what was happening here. So, are you saying Hansen didn't?
It's a quid pro quo. Grotehouse wants to prove to the donor that they're doing something.
Well, why wouldn't
Hansen wants to make sure that we don't leave as many fingerprints for prying eyes to uncover. She's the smartest one of the group. She understands you ought not leave a paper trail. You ought not leave your fingerprints. Grotehouse, as a lawyer, knows that he's got to prove to the fellow writing the $100,000 checks to Josh Mandel and John Kasich and the rest of the ilk that, hey, we're working hard for you. This is garden variety casework. Give me a break. Rob Nichols can do better. He ought to just attack me personally and we'll all laugh. And that's been his MO from the start. He did it with other representatives. He's done it with me. But he ought not lie. And what he and other members of the administration have done is purposely misled all of you and the people of the state of Ohio. And now, as the getaway vehicle is being warmed up out in front of the 7-Eleven, they think they're not going to have to be held accountable in the final 48 and a half days.
In this first email, the June 17th, 2014
Andy,
email.
what's your question?
In this June 17th email, do you think that Grote House was directed to write this email?
I do.
By who?
I think he was directed by Beth Hansen and the governor. And that's a follow-up question. You know, I'm a legislator. We have a file for garden variety casework. It's right there. You want go call Val Johnson, wander all over my office. You're welcome to even stand at the file and look through it yourself. I get constituents. Bob Snyder, good Republican, never given me a penny. He needs help with the Department of Taxation. Won't give him a nonprofit status at his center where he gives away furniture and food in Fort Clinton. Bob wrote me a letter. My legislator immediately brings it to my attention, sets it in front of me and says, Bob needs help. I said, well, call up the Department of Taxation legislative liaison. Let's see what kind of help we can. There's a paper trail. You can call up Bob today. He'll tell you. Call up Linda. They go to Mass Immaculate Conception. You can ask him. To suggest that no one knew that the chief legal counsel was engaged in helping a district attorney and perhaps pressuring a district attorney in faraway a home of wackadoodles in California, I mean, is to believe the unbelievable. It's just not true. And at what point do we all collectively say, wait a minute, it's not true, it doesn't pass the smell test, and oh, by the way, the emails prove that it's not just our inclination, it's not our gut feeling, it's the fact. You said at the time it was garden variety casework. When was the last time the governor's chief of staff was involved with garden variety casework in another state with a Democratic attorney general at a district attorney level? It just doesn't happen. We know it. We all know it. It's like saying campaign contributions don't impact campaigns. It's nonsense. Somebody ought to say it for once. Any other questions? No other questions. Thank you all very much. It takes 5 years off.